Aw, thanks, guys. That's so nice. Oh, thank you so much, Marlene, for the kind introduction. And I'm so excited to be here with all of you. I loved all the programming, and I was so engaged, and I loved DJ and Mike. You're so great. The breakout rooms were so awesome. This was just a really fun way for me to spend my morning. So I am so excited to talk to you about procrastination. Can you all see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
So basically, I have spent the last 2 months on book leave, and procrastination was like the bane of my existence. Like, I had 224 pages to finish and drawing, and I needed to make sure that there was no moment where I was like slacking off or like deciding not to work, because every single moment was precious. So I have a lot of things to share with you about that from that experience. The other thing, procrastination plagues people who don't. It's hard when you have a passion project on the side, like a creative project, a podcast, you're writing a screenplay or whatever. It's hard because you're trying to. It's not really something that you have to do. It's just something that you want to do. And because you don't have to do it, you don't actually end up doing it. And then it never happens. And then it just keeps getting pushed away. So these are my tactics of how to just like do the thing that you want to do, not have to do. All right, so I want to give you a little introduction about myself and my hobbies and interests. So first of all, as Marlene said, I have a full-time job, 9 to 6, Monday through Friday, really intense. When I'm working, I don't really have much time to break away or think about anything else. It's kind of all-consuming. Yet, I have other passions in my life. Like, I love my day job, but I've got some other stuff that I love doing on the side that are really, really important to me that I want to prioritize in my life. So in 2019, actually 2 years to this day, I published I Was Their American Dream, which is a graphic memoir. I drew that whole book while working. So that was like 2 years of just writing on the side after work, before work, on the weekends, and drawing. I had this really, really horrible schedule that was like, I went to work from 9 to 5, and then I took a break and then started working from 8 to 1 a.m. on the book, which was horrible and not sustainable. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. So I also love drawing comics, as I said. I've been really into making zines like since I was a little kid. So this is a magazine that I made when I was in middle school called The Monthly Mall, and a zine that I made just 2 years later. See the transformation because of puberty and high school, I guess. But I had a punk zine called Malaka Gharib, which I printed out and put all over Tower Records and Borders, and I put them out in the front so people could take them. But I've always been really enterprising and making art. Like, I've always been really interested in doing this stuff on the side from whatever else I was working on. And that kind of continued until to my adulthood. So I, in my early 20s, I had a zine called The Runcible Spoon, which is it's a food and fantasy zine. We basically just like made up stories about food and like made up recipes that you definitely could not cook at home. And we would photograph things, like we would take a bowl of Jell-O and like drop it from a 3-story balcony and then just photograph what remained. It was very, very wacky. But it ended up being really successful. We were selling it in bookshops in Tokyo and Copenhagen and London, and it got some really good press. So we were in the Times and the Washington Post, and like any passion project, it sometimes it's like you got to move on to the next thing. And my next thing was making my own little personal mini zines. So this is something that I love to do in my own practice. I've got I don't know if you can see this folder, but I keep all my mini zines in like baseball card folders and sleeves, I guess. And I basically was trying to search for what is it that I love about magazines and zines. And I think it's this idea of capturing a mini world in just a few pages. And so I sort of abstracted that to this miniature concept where I would, what is the most I can say in a very tiny format? So yeah, that's what I've been doing a lot of in the past few years. I also run the DC Art Book Fair, ran it. I'm now in Nashville, but it's an art showcase for artists because I wanted to create a sense of community around zines and comics. I also play the drums and take lessons, and I also love to play with polymer clay. So that's I made like a Polly Pocket of my fantasy home during the pandemic, and that's basically me sitting in a hot tub. There's a hookah lounge upstairs in the Polly Pocket. So that is a little bit about me and my hobbies and interests. And I'm going to walk you through 3 things that we're going to talk about in the next few minutes. One is like, how do you get all of that stuff done on top of your day job? How do you meet deadlines? Once you've decided like, I'm going to do this project, how are we going to get it done? How do you actually break it down and make sure that you know how to finish it? And then the last part, which is very important, is like, I don't feel like doing it. I don't want to do it. I want to watch TV. I want to watch The Handmaid's Tale. I'd rather watch Love Island. Whatever you want to do, that's the thing that's tough for me. I'm very lazy. Anyway, so let's talk about how you get it done. So first of all, I think it's very, very important before you embark on a creative project to take a step back and ask yourself why you're doing this. Because honestly, like you don't have time in the day. So this is my schedule, right? So I wake up, I work until like 5 p.m. I'm in Central Time, so I'm working on East Coast, so it's 6 p.m. there. And then I do dinner and chores like from 7 to 9. And then I'm basically so tired after doing all that stuff that I'm just on my phone in bed, which is something that's taboo, I know, but in bed on my phone, just reading BuzzFeed until midnight. And then I wake up and do it all over again. So there's not really that much room when you really think about your schedule to do anything creative. It's a busy day. So yes, this goes back to intentionality, as taking that step back and asking, why do I need to do this? It's a really, really important question to ask because you're basically spending your free time on your creative endeavor, whether it's working on a quilt, writing a screenplay, writing a poem, trying to apply for, a fellowship. You're using your own free time to do this work. So you need to sort of take that step back and ask. And for me, I think that fundamentally, I'm an artist. So I really believe like the way that I move through the world and process the world is by making things and writing things down and drawing things and trying to understand my feelings. And that's how I relate to the world around me. So this is absolutely essential. Making art is an essential part of my need, my idea of personal life satisfaction. And if you're probably in this room right now, as a fellow creative, you're probably also, you also need creativity in your life because that's part of your personal creative fulfillment. So it's almost this compulsion to create. And that's what drives me, what feeds me. And so I need to then respect that drive and treat my drive as a real job. So, like, it's wonderful that I have this fantastic day job. I love my day job. I work at NPR. It's such an awesome gig. And that's like something I've been working on for years to get to this point in my career. But I treat my creative life, writing books, drawing, making those little doodles, my Polly Pocket, my drumming, doing stuff in the community. I treat that also as a very, very, it's my other job. My other job is to be a creative person and let that part of me shine. And I think that it's important to do that because it adds a sense of gravitas and urgency and seriousness to your creative work. It's not just something that you do on the side that you want to do and like, I'll get to that someday. This is you. This is your vision, your life. So you got to treat it thusly. And that's me working on, this was October. I was writing the manuscript for my book, my new book, which I'll talk about. And I had my dog Shibu there to help me. It was 3 p.m. in the afternoon. It was a beautiful sunny day. And I was like, oh, I'd rather be outside. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to use an hour and just get a little writing done and have my companion with me. So yeah, making time. So that is the other thing that I want to say, making time. So once you've known that, like, okay, so art is really important to me. I really want to get this project done. I have the intention. Okay, now I'm going to sit down and try to like figure out where in my day that I can actually get this done. So this is your schedule, right? You work during the day, you like zonk out at night. Try to find these pockets of time where you can sort of sneak away and actually work. And while I'm talking, I want you to think about 3 places in your day where you could realistically just like jam in, like, all right, 10 minutes of creative work here, 30 minutes of creative work here, 1 hour where I could start make a real dent in a big project. So for me, I've identified 3 core spaces. One, early in the morning before I wake up, while I'm having my morning coffee, bust out my diary, bust out my sketchbook and just write and doodle freely, just to get my day started. And then during my lunch break, I feel like I deserve 30 minutes off after working so intensely. Definitely find that 30 minutes to draw a mini zine or maybe make something out of clay, because I'm crazy like that. And then in the evening after, instead of spending 8:30 to 9:30 p.m. like watching TV, I could just use that to write a little bit more of my book or draw a little bit more of my comic. And then at 9:30, I can be on my phone and read BuzzFeed again. So it's all good. There's still time in the day for you to rest up and zonk out. So, all right, now you've said, you've committed, you're saying like, okay, I'm going to do this project. Oh, fantastic. This publication is going to publish my my illustrations. So they give me this deadline. So how am I gonna get there? So we'll use this is just a cover concept. I really like this cover. Just ignore it. But I'm working on a new book called It Won't Always Be Like This, which is a memoir about all of the summers that I spent in the Middle East with my dad and his new family, my new stepmom, all my siblings that came, and trying to fit into this culture in Egypt that I just didn't have any. I'm from Los Angeles, didn't have that much experience with, and then trying to understand what I've learned from living there. So I knew that this book was due in November 2021. So you have to work backwards to figure out, all right, when do I need to start this project for it to actually be feasible for me to finish? So whether you want to launch a t-shirt company or, I think everybody's been getting those screen printing machines. I don't know what they're called, and they're selling it on Instagram with little things. But I want to get my t-shirt company like locked and loaded in the next year. It's almost like, when you were in school and the teacher always told you to read the chapter headings of each, in the beginning of the book, it tells you what's in each chapter. It's kind of like giving yourself a big snapshot of what action mode you're going to do in each step. So break it down to its components and be very generous with your time. So my deadline's November 2021. I was like, no, I'm not going to cut it close to that deadline. I'm going to be done with this book by August 2021, and just sort of like, there's going to be disasters that will happen, like anticipating the worst. So rather have that cushion time, then I'll have that extra time to like read the book over and over again until I exhaust myself. But I'd rather do that than to be running behind. That's very stressful of an already stressful process. How long do you know, how much time is it going to take for you to do things? That's also a hard thing to estimate. When I had my 2 months of book leave, I was like, great, I have to finish 224 pages in 2 months. My question is, can I do that? I was so full of anxiety in the months leading up to book leave because I didn't know how it's going to take to do things. So finally, on one day in March, I was just like, I'm just going to like draw for 8 hours and see how much I can get done. And I could get done 4 pages of illustration, it's a slow, painstaking process. And I was like, I'm only going to finish 3/4 of this book in the book leave, but that's fine. Okay. But at least I know what I can do and how much I can accomplish. So then I scheduled that. Based on that calculation, I scheduled out my work. So here's this calendar that I have in my office. It's right there. And I basically wrote down what pages I needed to be on every single day of the week, with some weekends for myself, because I didn't want to work over the weekend. And look, see, there's a CM Chicago thing on the 30th. See? Anyway, yeah, so I scheduled it in. And then it's very important to adjust if necessary. I found that here's me scratching out the page numbers. I was like, oh, I can get through things faster. I could do 6 pages in one day. And I was very proud of myself. And I was like, hooray, I can meet my deadline, my own personal deadline that no one gave me. I just gave myself this deadline, and there it is. You've got to respect your own deadlines as well. You can't just say like, well, I made it, so I can break it. It's like, you got to hold yourself accountable. All right, so that's the first 2 parts of my talk. The first part was trying to find that intentionality and that motivation to do your own work and meet your own deadlines and be accountable. The second part was about how to break your work down into components so that you can actually complete it. And then the third part is the hardest part, which is I don't really feel like doing it right now. I don't feel like doing it at all. I don't really want to do it. I mean, I love it, but it's like something in the future, maybe later. Maybe I'll have time for that later. Do it now. That's what I always say. So here's some tips that I have. So the first thing is to make your workspace pretty. So this is my office. I'm sitting right there on the desk, and I have got all my graphic novels in a bookshelf for easy reference. I've got, very colorful posters that inspire me. And on my desk, I like to have a lot of creative paper and stickers and pens and pencils. I think that like if you surround yourself with creative objects, your hands are going to eventually find itself like drawing and making stuff. And, before you know it, like, oh, hey, I made a card for my mom for Mother's Day. It's like, where did that come from? It's because I had all this stuff on my desk. So definitely keep your space a creative zone that you want to be in. This tactic I used all the time throughout my book process the past couple of months, which is to just start on a corner. Like, it's kind of like going to the gym or starting like a workout video where you're just like, I'll just do 5 minutes. And then you do 5 minutes and you're like, all right, I'll do 10 minutes. And then you're just like, you know what, screw it. I'm going to finish the whole Peloton video. I don't give a shit. So that's what happens. By the end, you're like, I drew 1 panel, then I drew 2 panels. And I'm like, I'm drawing a head, I'm drawing a hair, I'm drawing somebody's face. And then all of a sudden it's done. So start in a corner. Just tell yourself, start on a corner. Do what you can with the time that you have. I definitely don't have, I definitely try to fill my time making creative things. You're not going to finish a screenplay in 30 minutes, but you can finish a zine in 30 minutes and have that as something that you created for the day. Or in 5 minutes, you can take some paper and manipulate it around and see what you can do with it. I made this 3D version of my office just while I was listening to a meeting. And that was not this meeting, but another meeting. And you'll be surprised by what you can do with these like very small time constraints. So give yourself those challenges. I'm also a big fan of doing these smaller projects because they're actually source material for later potential larger projects. So that's why I keep all these zines in my notebook, because I could return to this later. I'm like, you know what, this would make a really good essay, or this could be a really good comic. And I'm not afraid to go back to my source material. So I wrote this poem in 20 minutes after this very, very beautiful afternoon in Baltimore. And it was something that I felt very passionate about, that I needed to express myself quickly. And so I wrote this poem. And a year later, I turned that poem into an essay, sort of like it became the basis of a long form essay that I got published in Seventh Wave magazine. So those little things that you make, they're very precious and they're not a waste of time, and it's not procrastinating to make small things, is my take home message. Okay. Okay, so we're gonna have a little activity in a second, but this is another thing that I love to do. Creativity is practice, right? Like the more creative you are, the easier it is to be creative, right? You're expanding your acceptance of the blank page and getting yourself more in the habit of like like off the cuff thinking. And so sometimes if I feel like, I got like a big day of drawing ahead of me, I need to finish 9 pages today because I slacked off yesterday. So how do I get into this mindset? I'm going to give myself a little tiny creative appetizer to get me in the zone, to get me in the mood, to get me in the flow. And that could be anything. Like I'm a big fan of looking at other artists' work. So sometimes I'll go on, I have my favorite art blogs that I go to. It's Nice That, and I look at some of the illustration, I get some inspiration from that. Sometimes I read a poem. Sometimes I go and draw a little mini zine, whatever it is. But today we're going to go ahead and do a 30-second meditation, 5 minute, 30 second. It's going to be a 30-second meditation on an image that I'm going to show you on the screen. And you're going to basically draw, write, crumple a piece of paper, make a sculpture, write a poem, write a haiku based on this painting. So the moment I go to the page, I don't think the timer works, Marlene. I didn't know how to figure it out. So I'm going to go ahead and, all right. So
I can keep time too.
Oh, can you keep time? That would be great because I don't know how to do both. Okay, so 30 seconds. You're going to look at this painting, Girl by a Window from 1921 by Henri Matisse, and just do a free write on it. I too will do that. So here I go. 30 seconds on the clock with Marlene.
And go.
And then we'll do some share later. We'll do some sharing. So I think I'm going to draw me by a window as well, but I want to think of like a beautiful moment that I had when I was looking out a window on holiday. So I'm just thinking about that. My skirt is flowing in the wind. I'm wearing little slippers. I've got this beautiful window. Actually, there's this time that I went to Rome with my mom, and the window in our hotel room was so beautiful, and it looked out to this amazing light. You don't get light like that in the States, I think. Only in Europe.
Yes, our alarm has gone off.
Dang, all right. So does anybody want to share? I'll show you what I drew. Does anybody want to share what they drew? Actually, how do I know? Like, I can't see people. Let's see. Okay, here's what I drew. I drew myself looking out a window. It's an ocean and these big, lovely shutters. So that was based on this painting. I'm going to call on people randomly, maybe.
Yes.
Let's see. I can't see the names. Why? Oh dear.
You want me to call a name for you?
Yeah, Marlene, can you do that? Thank you.
Yes, I'm gonna call on. Don't be afraid now. Let's go to Seth.
For me, I didn't draw, but I was picturing like her inner monologue. I was thinking she's like judging someone who's like on the street doing something, like maybe they parked funny and they're like trying to like, ooh, what are they doing? Like her facial expression.
I love that. That's fantastic. I love really studying an image and trying to put myself in the character that I'm viewing and see what they're thinking. I didn't even actually think of that when I looked at the painting. I just thought of the window. We'll do one more person. If Marlene, if you want to choose at random.
Yes. Let's go to, how about Holly? Holly, want to showcase your lovely sketch or poem?
I was just sketching on just like a sticky note, but I was thinking it reminded me of a picture my dad sent me of this tree that's like blooming in our front yard, his front yard. And he took it looking out of a window and it was like showing the pain. So I was just like doodling, but.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Well, see, I think that it's like, you can give yourself this little like tiny task to do to sort of get you in the zone, get you in the flow and be like, all right, I've completed one thing. Now I can move on to like the other stuff that I have to do for this project that I put an arbitrary deadline on because it's something that I don't have to do, but I want to do. So yes. And you can do it for anything. There's so many challenges. I'm sure you guys have all heard of the artist's way. That's jam-packed full of creative exercises to do. All right. So sometimes my brain like mush. This is an album cover of the band Battles. And when I think about my brain feeling like mush at the end of the day, this is the image that I often return to. I feel like a ball of sludge, pink sludge. And what do I do when that happens? I just rest. I think that I probably need to take a break and take a breather and just take a moment. And it's something that I do in my day job often. When you're working in creative space, you really need to be mentally on. And sometimes I can't report any longer. I can't edit. I've hit a wall. I'll go for a walk. I'll, get some lunch. I'll take a snack. I'll just be on my phone for a moment, or sometimes I'll just sleep on it. I'll be like, you know what? It's 3:00. I can't do on this project any longer. I'm just gonna like stop working now and then return to it tomorrow. And that often is great because you come back to your project with super sharp, fresh eyes, and you know exactly what you need to do, and you don't need to waste time fiddling around and trying to find that inner energy. You just know exactly what you need to do. So rest is great. And I told you that I love reading BuzzFeed. I also love reading Bored Panda. That's how I like to rest. I like to read very stupid articles at night. And it's really my Achilles heel. I really can't explain it, but I cannot wait to read this article. I've been saving it. Okay, the next thing and the last thing that's very important is to know your limits. Like, when I was working on that book, I Was Their American Dream, I think I told you that I was working from 9 to 5, then taking a break and spending some time with my husband, eating, doing chores. And then from 8:30 to 1 a.m., I would work on the book. And that burned me out. It wasn't good for the work. It wasn't good for me. It wasn't good for my day job. It wasn't good for my husband. It wasn't good for anybody. So I said, maybe that project dragged on longer than it needed to because I had to find more energy inside myself to tackle that project. So this time around with my second book, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to take 2 months of my vacation and my sick leave, and I'm going to all my personal time and like my snow days, my comp time, I'm just going to jam them together and try to just like get the book done in the 2 months that I have. That's all I could afford. So that was my limit. I knew my limit, and I'm actually much happier. It was a happier process. It was more enjoyable, and I loved it. So that is it. Oh, yes, there we go. That's me saying that I was on book leave, going to draw 2 months on my manuscript. I did it. So that's all from me. I hope you enjoyed my little talk, and I'd love to answer your questions.